Uh-oh, another Twitter matchup. This should be fun. Yujiro Hanma, the ogre, as well as the strongest creature on the planet Earth, and Shin Godzilla, a mutated prehistoric beast that's just trying to find his way out in the world, to our detriment. Obviously, this is a more out there matchup, but even I can understand the general premise of the conversation. Both of these guys seem to be more town-centric threats, as well as them both being able to strike fear into the heart of any person that sees them in their respective verse. For this matchup, I'll be using Shin Godzilla post his atomic breath evolution, as his atomic breath windup seems to be much shorter than when he first initially used it. And I'll be also using current Yujiro, which means that he should scale to all the feats in the verse, especially the most recent ones from the manga. Let's say that Shin Godzilla is ravaging through Japan, and like in the movie, no weapons seem to be effective at putting the king of the monsters down. With seemingly no options, the leaders of the world call for a nuke in a drastic ditch effort to put Godzilla down. Just then, Yujiro Hanma, intrigued by such raw power, offers up his services, because why not? Baki characters be boxing with dinosaurs all the time. This can't be that much different. And just like that, the stage is set for a battle that would likely determine the fate of Japan itself. So with all this in mind, who would win between these unstoppable forces of nature? For the sake of those of you guys who are not new to the channel, as well as for the guys who are new to the channel, I will go over Shin Godzilla first, since I am way more familiar with his scaling, and there's also the fact that it's just much more simple to me. Shin Godzilla wasn't always this way. As implied by the film, Shin was some type of prehistoric sea animal that had somehow survived into modern day, that during a period of 60 years rapidly evolved until it could stand up and walk upright. From there, Shin Godzilla would return periodically to the surface, each time donning a new form or evolution until he reached his perfect form, resembling the traditional Godzilla figure with more zombie-like qualities. Due to the somewhat grounded nature of the film, this Godzilla's feats are a lot more grounded, especially compared to someone like monstrous Godzilla. But don't let that fool you, as he still has some decent stuff that we can talk about to get a nice gauge for his stats, such as attack potency, durability, speed, and that isn't even including his natural abilities. So let's dive into that. Shin Godzilla as a baseline would upscale off feats from his previous forms. With both of these states being able to destroy bridges and even buildings, this would entail some easy small building to even building level ranges of attack potency for Shin Godzilla during its fourth form. Shin in this state also weighs 92,000 tons and is around 120 meters tall. Due to these insane factors, we can actually find the value for his GPE, or gravitational potential energy, which would be equivalent to around 53,474,310,000 joules, or roughly 13 tons of TNT, which would place Shin into the city block ranges of power. This would scale to Shin's durability due to Newton's third law, and there's also the fact that the feats that he upscale involve the weaker forms shoving their bodies into these buildings and bridges. He's also shown to be essentially immune to most man-made weapons, keyword being most, as in the middle of the film, he's shown to be critically injured by the stealth bomber's bunker buster bombs. He's able to endure a pretty decent amount of these attacks. Keep in mind that one bunker buster has a yield equivalent to around 2.6 tons of TNT, which is large building level. I don't think it's that bad of an anti-feat, as requiring multiple large building level attacks to start to scratch at Shin's base durability isn't really that large of a leap in logic in my opinion. In order to combat these instruments of war, Shin had to evolve an atomic breath, which when used was able to not only destroy the stealth bombers, but decimate the entirety of Tokyo, with each of these beams being shown to casually slice through buildings for hundreds of meters, and he can fire literally multiple sets of these beams at once, with each of these beams being calculated to be in the kilotons or even low megatons, which would entail some large towns even city level scaling for the beams at best. Also currently, it seems he can use these beams at will, and the windup seems to be much shorter. And there's also the fact that using said attack doesn't seem to put him in hibernation, so yeah. But I want to know, one shouldn't really scale these beams AP to Shin's physical stats, as he has no showings in the film to kind of, insinuate that. In fact, his physical showings are much worse. And even during Who Knows, the sequence heavily implies that Shin is in pain just by shooting the beams, which are composed of photons by the way, which means they move at light speed. As for his normal speed though, it isn't anything too special, as based on his sheer size, he would fall into the superhuman echelon in terms of travel speed. But as for his reaction and attack speed, he would fall into the supersonic tier, as he was able to attack and hit jets mid-flight. And yeah, I know, he used his atomic breath to, tag the jets, but Shin still had to physically move the lasers in the direction of the plane's routes, so he would still scale to their speed somewhat. Moving on to his hacks now, According to specialized data, Shin Godzilla can regenerate from something as small as cells, though the process is implied to take several months. And he also has reactive evolution, and he's also noted to possess 8 times the genetic information of human beings. Though one should note that his reactive evolution takes time, and even then, he has to get used to said evolutions. Usually he'll run into the sea, and at worst, he could just, freeze in place for a couple weeks. So yeah, despite Shin Godzilla not being the strongest Godzilla of all time, he still was pretty much a god incarnate. And even at the end of the film, he wasn't physically overpowered or anything, as the humans had to play off his weaknesses just to get a seemingly temporary win. As previously mentioned, Yujiro Hanma is the strongest being in the Baki universe. He's considered to be a true one-man army, and his name alone strikes fear into the hearts of entire countries, with them having to resort to creating peace treaties just to get along with him. Yujiro wouldn't be the pinnacle of physical force if he didn't have the feats to back up his hype, so let's dive right into his stuff. As a baseline, he can get into the same building to large building ranges of attack potency. Some feats consistent with this level of power are him punching holes into walls and creating dust out of the fragments, casually killing gigantic African elephants, and even shaking entire skyscrapers just by being angry. But for higher ends, he was shown to be able to endure a prolonged stroke of lightning, and even destroy a huge chunk of a forest with his storm gust, with the latter feat being calculated into the city block to even large town levels of power. Some consistent town level scaling comes from the ogre's very infamous feat where he was able to stop a particularly violent earthquake with just his fist alone, with this feat also getting into the large town ranges. Moving on to his nuclear scaling now, we're gonna have to talk about his relationships with multiple countries. And as previously mentioned, these places are forced to create peace treaties, as according to the FBI, Barack Obama, and even Donald Trump, they all conclude that the US's entire military force combined stood no chance against him, with even Barack Obama confirming that his punch is more powerful than a nuclear bomb. It's also stated that none of the world's most powerful weapons also had any chance of killing him. This would mean that he would upscale IRL bombs, such as the 15 megaton nukes used during the tests at Bikini Atoll, and even doomsday devices such as the SAR Bomba, which at full capacity could generate explosions equivalent to 100 megatons of TNT, which would put him into the city to even mountain level ranges of power. This would all scale to his durability, as current world leaders have said verbatim that the only way to possibly kill Yujiro with these weapons, in a way that wouldn't even endanger innocent lives, would be if he was walking in the Sahara Desert by himself and was somehow caught off guard not expecting a bomb. Keep in mind all of these metascale to base Yujiro, as he has his demon back, which Kaioken seems to drastically increase all of his stats, including attack potency, durability, and even speed. Stacking this on top of his mountain level base, with his demon back, he would reach the large town to even island levels of power at his absolute peak. One could even argue that it's consistent, as Pickle was able to no-sell the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, which gets into the island ranges of power as well. Moving on to his speed now, Yujiro at the barest of minimums of low balls was scaled to superhuman tiers, as even as a teenager he could easily react and dodge punches from Muhammad Ali himself, but you could get him much higher, as he's stated to be able to dodge lightning, which moves at massively hypersonic speeds, or roughly around over 1,200 times faster than the speed of sound, if I recall. But for a very high end of speed, the narrator confirms that Baki can throw a punch at faster than light speeds, and Yujiro can very easily react and dodge them, overall granting Yujiro Hanma anywhere from superhuman to even faster than light combat speeds and reactions. And honestly, after going over all of his scalings, I'm not super surprised. As the manga puts it, after all, furious, heinous, overbearing. If you talk about this man, those are words that you would use to describe him. So with the stats of both our combatants all laid out, I think it's pretty clear that Yujiro is both stronger and much faster than Shin Godzilla. Unironically, based on Shin's durability and Yujiro's sheer attack potency, even Yujiro's most casual blows should be able to do critical damage to Shin Godzilla, and any one of his serious blows should more than likely be able to kill him. As previously mentioned, Yujiro has a lot of scaling to nuclear bombs, a lot of things that heavily imply he can no-sell them, and then we have statements that just blatantly say he can punch greater than the force of a nuke. Well, this is pretty important for a matchup such as this, because in the film Shin Godzilla, they kind of implied that a nuclear bomb would be able to kill Shin Godzilla. And yeah, I know, granted, it's never really shown because the nuke's not dropped, and the humans are pretty consistently wrong about Shin Godzilla's anatomy, so I could really understand why you think this is something you doubt. But unfortunately, we have multiple sources outside of the film that heavily imply that a nuclear bomb would kill him. For starters, the director of the film, Hideaki Anno, kind of really, he just said that a nuke would be able to kill Shin. And then we have another guidebook statement that says that a nuclear bomb would be able to kill Shin, but as a result of getting hit with a freaking nuclear bomb, Shin Godzilla's nuclear core would erupt, which would subsequently lead to an explosion that is stated to be equivalent to numerous nuclear bombs, or several nuclear bombs, something around that. And upon his full death, his internal radiation would pollute the surrounding area for 100 years. So this is what more or less is likely to happen. Yujiro is going to punch Shin Godzilla as he's much faster than him and much stronger, and Shin Godzilla just kind of dies from there. I'm not sure if brute force would lead to Shin's core overloading, but we have numerous statements that imply that Yujiro Hanma will be able to no-cell even the strongest nuclear bombs. This sentiment only gets reaffirmed if you upscale Yujiro off Pickle, who he should logically be stronger than. And as previously mentioned, he no-celled the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. So with Yujiro more than likely being able to no-cell Shin's final explosion, what about Shin's remaining internal radiation that would pollute the area? Like, would Yujiro get radiation poisoning and die horribly? Well, no, I don't think it's that simple, as Yujiro has resistances to poison, mostly due to his physiology and skeleton structure, and he can't get sick either, as Baki believes him to be immune to cancer and even AIDS, as he stated to just be stronger than viruses and bacteria. And there's also the fact that, they say he can no-cell, nuclear bombs, which have radiation, so yeah, that just kind of goes without saying. So yeah, as it turns out, the Twitter joke was actually accurate to what would actually happen. Yujiro would just likely eat Shin Godzilla, like he did that elephant in Africa. Hey, gotta get those protein goals in somehow. As today's winner is Yujiro Hanma. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and Baki's obviously a verse that I haven't touched on the channel. Would you guys like me to do more videos starring the IP? Let me know in the comments. Also, while you're down there, put the comment of the week, Ogre, for obvious reasons. He's the Ogre. But as always, I'll see you guys next week. But until then, stay big, G fans.